Hey, how you doing? North 900. It's sorry about my throat. It's things are blooming, and so allergies are literally in full bloom. So I wanted to make a quick video because I haven't made any in. Well, I've made some videos. I just haven't uploaded the videos, largely because I've been sick. Right, so some of the days got kind of messed up. I had some obligations, and because of that, some things just didn't get published, or I was still making my offerings, but I was ill enough that I was having trouble keeping on track with what I was trying to say. So I could absolutely get the offerings done, but the conversation left a little bit to be desired. I usually try to impart something when I make these, so it's not just you watching me burn things, right? Because that's what a lot of it is. And so I wanted to kind of give you an update of what I'm doing and where I'm going. And I'll still be doing a lot of the same stuff I am doing. The rituals with Xiao Ming are not going away, not at all. Um, the 76-week Oasia, which I've started, most of that's on my blog because it wouldn't really make sense to make videos of them. A lot of them are conversations or things that are described, and so there's not going to be a lot of action on there. I mean, how many of these type of talking head videos are you really going to find interesting, right? Let's see, I'm on week 7 of that with Barbados. It's actually gone really well, but that kind of leads me into some of my current efforts that I've been doing. And it involves, I've said this a little bit, involves this, and, well, I can't actually see. Hold on, sorry. It involves this. Creepy doll. And it involves this little skull. Pretty sure I've talked about those. It's been a hot minute. But this is a foam skull that's covered in felt. And so the experiments I'm doing there, I have talked about that. I just can't remember if it's on video or my WordPress, my blog, occultHouseofNorse900.com. Probably both, because it's worthy of that. And so what I'm doing is I'm doing experiments with spirits that I ask for, with entities that I trust, that I can have do some specific things to interact with the environment, actually. And so I kind of want to, I'm kind of making experimentations on, how much energy have I devoted to them? How much have I given them? What results have I seen from that? Do they feel different? Because they should feel more complex. I mean, just feeding them isn't quite enough. I mean, you can feed any parasite anytime you want. I'm not saying they're parasites, but I'm saying you can feed a parasite all day long, and it doesn't mean you're going to get something to show from it. And these are both more advanced than your average parasite, your average ankle biter, for sure. And so they are entities from two different deities. I'll have to use that word loosely because one is from hell, and the other is from hell, and the other is from the immortal fox. And so the one from hell, there's part of the experiment that's going on is trying to determine how do these spirits change over time, and how easy are they to I don't want to say control, because that's not quite what I want to do, but a curate isn't the right word either, because it's not like I'm coddling them along for something like this. But what I do want to do is make sure that they aren't going to be prohibitively dangerous, sort of thing, right? And that's a reasonable thing for me to want to do. But what does it take to do that, right? What does that take to do that if they aren't being fed on fear, if they aren't being fed on dread, paranoia, the easy, low-hanging fruit that a lot of parasitic entities specifically feed on, right? I don't want to resort to that, right? I can pull that from all sorts of places. There are all sorts of places in the world where there's conflict and those feelings are happening. I mean, I'm sure they're happening here in my neighborhood, but on a large scale, there are places in the world where that's an unfortunate reality, and I'd rather not pull from that because I don't want them to be malevolent, right? That's kind of what I'm getting at. I don't want them to be malevolent. If I just needed or wanted a malevolent spirit, then that would be fine. But doing this also, well, it actually ties into my work with Barbados here, and my work with him this past week. We're only on like day 3 at this point, but it's been exclusively about, since he gives good familiars, he's giving me counsel and advice on working with these spirits, coaching them in ways, in trying to help me find the balance. This is a long-term project. This is not going to happen overnight. And so when I actually do get this down, and actually do get this right, these are going to be exceptionally expensive. So, because I've spent a lot of time already, and I expect to spend more. But part of it is that I've been tasked with helping to bolster spirits, as I've said. But how do you do that? And yeah, we can do that through chanting. We can do that through song. We can do that through our typical offering system. That's partially why those offerings were made in the beginning. It's a bolstering act, right? It imparts at least part of that energy to the chosen entity in a lot of ways, especially if we use like fire and other mediums that can conduct things like water. But it doesn't really tell us how much is needed, right? And we know from anecdotal evidence that you can use fear and pain and hurt and all sorts of other stuff to really make an entity strong. But what if you'd rather help that spirit instead? And that's kind of where this is going. And so Barbados, who's known to give good familiars, is coaching me for this, at least this week. I have a feeling he'll be giving me inputs, as he already has. And then we've talked about those inputs in ritual, and I'm very thankful for that, because this is kind of a road uncharted, right? It really is in a lot of ways. I'm sure there are some things out there. I'm not aware of them, and I can't find them. And just generic servitor stuff isn't what I'm looking for, because I'm trying to help spirits, already created spirits, not spirits that I would create, right? Because if I could do it with the spirit that's already been created, right? Each of which has their own nuances and stuff like that. So when the system is down for that, then the servitor would be much easier. And I have some things in place for that, but since it's not been, I really want to catch the stuff on camera, sort of thing. So that's kind of what I'm leaning towards there, and that's been taking up some time. And I talked about Barbados and him helping me due to the familiar experience. Let's see. Yeah, work's been actually like really stressful lately, and there really isn't much I can say about that. It's just the team I laid, we're really good at finding things that we want to find, and putting together some of the pieces when we do happen to find things. But that can lead to a lot of stress, because now you have to evaluate things for the consumption of not just your organization, but other organizations. And I know that's really vague, but these have like real world consequences with very, very real dollar amounts sometimes. And we've absolutely been doing a really good job with that, but that in turn creates some stress. And there's also a lot of turnover in the office that I'm working in. I'm leaving in mid-June, and there's a lot more happening before that. So lots of stress. Still training people while doing the full-time work of like 2 people. So I've been busy, and I'm still obviously working on my occult goals, because that's part of me. I'm not a hobbyist, right? This isn't something I just do on weekends. You know, it was at one time. Well, I guess I don't even know if I can really say that, to be honest with you, because until Hakata came to me and like, I want to say it's 20. I don't think it was 2018. I think it was 2019. And the reason there's some hesitancy there is because that grimoire was destroyed. It was destroyed in the move. It got shifted, and then that the rain got into that box and then destroyed it. So I don't have some of those notes anymore that I didn't make online, and so most of those notes I don't have anymore either. Yeah, but until then, I was largely spiritual, but not spiritual, but not religious. I certainly wasn't an occultist, so I can't say that I've full tilt boogied there. But since I've started it sincerely, then I'm absolutely not a hobbyist. I'm still doing my daily Maoshan stuff. So there are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things with that. I should be adding another 2 more, which I plan to do, and maybe 3, at least for 100 days. And I'm almost there. I'm just kind of waiting to fully get over this illness, which I don't think I am yet. But we'll get there. And if you're interested, then a lot of that has to deal with you can find the school itself in Jason Reed's books on Amazon. And then if you email him, then there is a course. There are a couple courses. I'm in both. The Fox Magic course, and then there's the Maoshan. I don't want to say initiate, because you aren't an initiate at that point. You have to work through. It's about a year's worth of material, and I've been doing it for about a year. But I came in at one time for some of the practices that I still need to do, still need to incorporate actually. And it's a forbidden month for doing those when I did it, and then it was like 2 weeks before that, so I lost my momentum. So I've kept up with all the other stuff, but I haven't integrated that yet, so I need to do that. But it's about a year's worth of work for the Maoshan stuff to be ready to initiate. And there was a question about some of my Yin Debt videos, and it has to deal with that. The Yin Debt has to deal with that. The debt for the repayment of life, the loan for life. I did, in that reply, leave a link to a thread I had on the forum called the Occult Mirror. And on that forum, it's under Norse's production techniques for these ingots. I was doing it a lot of different ways, trying a lot of different things to see if there was anything that was more efficient, or not necessarily more time efficient, but maybe more cost effective for ingots than just buying them in bulk off of AliExpress. And the truth is that I did get close to matching the AliExpress price, but it took a lot of time. It involved a lot of spray paint, and it is not nearly as fast, because even though it takes months for those ingots to get here, here, let me just grab one. I know I have videos on doing it, but here's an example of a stack of those ingots, right? Here, sorry, let me make sure I can see this. These, right? And most of the procedure that I got was using spray paint, which you can buy in bulk. But compared to just doing this, right? Time-wise, if I can barely make the same cost as this, buying in bulk, and let me donate this to a friend of mine actually who's getting married soon. Good for them. Good for them. Really excited about that. I've got 1,000 ingots, and plenty of ancestor money. I folded in ingots for them. Really excited about that. But anyways, so I tried several different methods. Buying mylar, cutting the mylar, taping it to yellow sheets of paper that I also bought in bulk to try to get the cost down. I couldn't get the cost lower than AliExpress, and I absolutely could not get the time down. Not even close. Not even close. It was hands down not even close. So, now most people don't really care about paying their yin debt because you don't have to pay it right away. I can't really make a video on it because I can't talk about the Maoshan methods for like calculation and why is it necessary, because in the Maoshan, if you want to initiate, you have to have your yin debt paid. And the yin debt isn't just the official yin debt, it's also the personal yin debt, right? And that's part of signing up for that school if you want to follow that path, right? And that path isn't going to be for everybody. But if you put something on YouTube, it has a much better chance of lasting, right? So that's why all my there are only a couple parts of those videos the first time I did it for my own personal yin debt that I recorded elsewhere or put into chunks, because there are some text that I don't know is public that I had to do, and there's a whole ceremony for that. It would take me 3-4 hours per debt, right? So twice to make those texts. And you got to consecrate the paper, the inkstone, the ink, the water. You got to grind the ink, which has a ritual for that. You got to you have to write out all of the characters. Of course, you're painting the characters because these are done with brush, a Chinese calligraphy kit. And it takes a very long time for somebody like me who I don't know the words that I'm writing, but there are English translations, and so just like I would if I was doing a sigil that I'd made for a specific purpose, I would put my hand over them, and I would recite the words that were on those things in at least English, because those things get translated just like their words get translated to us, right? So anyways, where was I? Yin debt, Maoshan, right? So the methods for the Maoshan stuff isn't necessarily useful for somebody that isn't pursuing initiation or wants to consider pursuing initiation, right? It's not mandatory. You do this, now you must initiate. I'm not initiated, right? The choice is still mine. I still have to. There are some things I still need to accomplish. There's probably another 6 months to a year's worth of work. Since I don't want to rush it. I want the experience of working through the system. And I mean, I'm dedicated, right? I'm not just going to slough off, but I've got a house hunting trip coming up that's almost 10 days long, so I'm going to lose at least 2 weeks there. I'm going to be losing all my household goods sometime, probably in the first week of June, if not the last week of May, right? And I'm not going to have that stuff for several months. So I have to try to what am I going to have to be able to do some of these rituals? Because there are very few tools, but there are some tools, and I have to make that determination for that, right? So I'm not necessarily going to rush it, but there are some very real deadlines that are going to come up that are going to delay my ability to do those things, and that's fine. But since I do want to potentially pursue that path, I had to do my yin debt. Now, you can also work off your yin debt doing good deeds, donations at temples. Like, for example, I've done recently here, just in the past few weeks, I traveled to Virginia, even though I was still sick. I traveled to Virginia to then do some necromancy work with the ancestors of a friend of mine because it needed to be done. And so I did that for them. I'd already been to that cemetery before. I felt I had unfinished business, so I was good with that. Something like that would work off part of my debt. Now, can I calculate that? Well, no, I can't. Right? But it is known that, donating time or money to temples, doing good works, or doing things similar to paying this yin debt. And the numbers can vary. If you look at some of the text, the numbers can vary. It's largely symbolic, but that doesn't mean it's not important, right? Especially if you're pursuing this path, and it's going to be very important. There's a very big difference in a lot of ways between the entities who already knew I wasn't a hobby occultist, right? But once I paid that debt off, there was a very big softening, if you will. Not warm and fuzzies, because it just isn't like that, but a big softening, right? And considering that this is a Chinese pantheon, essentially, not entirely, but a Chinese pantheon, then that has a mistrust of outsiders, generally speaking, with the culture behind it. That's not lost on me, and I was very appreciative of that. So why would I do my son's, for example? Well, I would do his because it means that he doesn't have to, but it also means that if he did his and then got reincarnated, then he wouldn't be going in with more debt, right? You see what I'm saying? It's kind of like their version of the underworld is, at least from this example, is that it's almost a mirror of here, and they still need things to survive on. They still need like money for food or for services or things like that. So it's kind of like an inverse, but I'm not gonna pretend to completely understand it. But when you look at offerings that they provide for, the Hungry Ghost Festival and things like that, it's the stuff you need for life, of course. Food, drinks, things like that. Desserts, sweets, but you'll also find stuff like houses. Like they'll build miniature houses and miniature cars, and you'll even see cell phones cropping up. But I don't know. I don't think I've ever talked to any ancestors that had a bill from AT&T or I'm not saying it's not there. I mean, all right, say it was similar to the astral, which you think is there, then there's going to be established stuff there that has been created by somebody else, and that could be objective reality for them. Now, of course, they could step off of it and do their own thing, but the point being is that I've never, even within cultures that, like my own culture, that had even my culture 1,000 years ago, whose my ancestors I've talked to from that time, because some of them are still around. I mean, they didn't quite look at it that way, but they still got buried with things they would need in life, or things that they valued in life, so they could keep them. And it's really not that different of a concept. It's just taken to a different level, right? Because it's a different culture, and so we buy these ingots, and like when I do them, I literally imbue them to be ingots on the other side. And so that's a big difference between somebody that just kind of tosses them on there or not. Now, they are still valued. That's what I was getting to. I got sidetracked. Sorry. They are still valued by that culture and other cultures that didn't have anything to do with those. Like when I burn ancestor money for my ancestors, who most of which came from Europe exclusively, right? They're still very grateful to have it, right? And like genuinely grateful. It's not like some, oh, hey, thanks, Scooter. That's not my real name. Neither is Cletus. But they have a genuine there's a genuine thankfulness for that, because it is considered a type of currency, and I've sent that currency to them, right? Now, in the case of this, it's representative of an ingot of gold, of solid gold, and so that kind of has value in just about every culture you come across, right? These two, just for not completeness, because that's not even the right word, but usually you'll use ingots for entities, deities, like things like big debts, official things, and the ancestor money you'll use for like personal debts that they can use, personal money they can use. Some of the numbers on there are really freaking large, and if it costs that much on the other side, then I'm glad I've burnt all these ingots for other people and ancestor money for other people, and especially for myself, because that, you know, I don't want to be starting in a hole, right? So those things do have meaning, but I'd be lying if I said I fully understood what those are. I can feel the importance of them, and I can feel the appreciation of them, and so therefore I will still do them. I mean, here, just let me show you. So, yeah, I was running out. Stack of ancestor money here. And I burnt almost all of, I burned an entire one the other day for the family of that friend of mine, right? That unfinished business that I needed to take care of there. And they were exceptionally grateful. I mean, I've never met these people, right? But they were like 100% Christian. Obviously, they were still around because I called them and talked to them. And I invited them here for any ancestor offerings that I do and offerings to the dead, because that's kind of my policy for those that I've interacted with that weren't, shit bags. And these seem like really nice people, right? Really, really nice people. More than welcome here. And, they were just so grateful to have it. But there's something going on the other side and I don't know what it is, right? I'm not going to pretend to really know. I know some of the thoughts and theories. I know that. But they would have no knowledge of what that even is, right? In this life. They would have no knowledge of that. And yet it still had some value to them. Had a lot of value to them. I was burning incense for them too, because I do. I still burn incense for the dead, and for the dead and those that keep them. I don't do it daily anymore because I was told not to. Because some of them were coming to, I was told not to by Hell first. I should say that, because she was afraid that some of them were becoming attached to it, and she didn't really elaborate. But I could see that if they got into like an entitlement phase, then we don't need that. When, especially if I'm gonna be out of my ancestor stuff for months, right? Now I'll take some probably about 1,000 ingots with me, and I'll take 1,000 sheets of ancestor money with me, but I'll go through 24 of those ingots a week, and the same with the ancestor money. So, if I have rituals to do, I may have to start looking at how much I'm using, because like here, this is an offering for a friend of mine, right? For that friend who's having she's getting married soon. That's 300. And I stopped there because I felt I should. So I could have kept doing it, but I'm kind of like that. So if I won't hesitate to pick up a stack of 100 like that, and then start tossing it into a fire I've lit, for something. If there's somebody that really needs it, that is brought to my attention. So, see, what else am I doing? I know I'm all over the place, but I'm still working on my gates project. It's still there. I just opened up the gate for this lovely little stone. I can actually see it in the reflection here since I moved this thing. But just opened up that one. I'm still waiting to open up this one. It's almost ready, but there's something missing, and I don't know what it is. So that first one was one of the lighter gates, and that other one was one of the darker gates. So I'm still doing the gate work, depending upon time and how long it takes to do it. Since I wasn't feeling well, they gave me some kind of grace period, and I was willing enough to start the thing, but he asked me to wait after I could feel it was ready, right, to open. So that I was ready for it to open. Because if I open it, then first impressions can kind of matter, and I need to take all those down, and so I am. And there's some interesting things about them. Um, I think what they're doing right now is I'm getting the gates, and then um, and then I'm going to be working more with them in more extensive ways later. Because I already knew I've already started combining some of these things, but there's some other things about it that I don't know yet, and I'm kind of waiting for some of those things to be brought to my attention. And that's not going to happen yet. Now I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to bring those with me or if I'm going to have them moved. If my house hunting trip in May is successful, then I will have an address, and I will ship a lot of my ritual stuff there, my idols and stuff like that. I can let my candles go here. That's fine. I'll let them take them. That's fine. I can buy more off of Amazon. They'll get here much faster, right? There's still Amazon in Hawaii. It just isn't always next day, right? In fact, it might just be next week or something like that. But that's still faster than 2 months, right? So I'll probably go that route, and I'm not sure how that's going to go. That'll affect what rituals I can do. But that's then. Let's see. So gates, familiars. We hit on the Yin Debt because I had a question about that in the comments for my sons. Let me get some drink. Yeah, I think that's it, really. Let me look. I've started posting some of my stuff on Instagram, mostly because if it doesn't really take a video to like explain or demonstrate something, then I may just do it on Instagram. I've also started moving up some of my older photos there, including some of my older photos from Hawaii last time I was there, old ritual photos, stuff like that. Yeah, I'm just trying to think here. Take a look around. Yeah. I mean, I moved Hushan's altar. Oh, I can say that. All right, so I'm doing the Maoshan Fox Magic course. There's the book, which I highly recommend. Really like it. Still use it. Just did a ritual with it the other day, actually. The video didn't really turn out, and it was an initial meeting because not all of the foxes, I just could say, are of the same clan. But I've been reading about some of the other fox material out there, and there's stuff that I agree with, and there's stuff that I obviously don't, because it's me, and it's the occult, and we should never 100% agree with anything, because that means we aren't thinking, right? But there were a lot of. It's when I was sick, actually. I got sick a year ago, and all of a sudden I felt that I needed to read. It was about a year ago. Usually if I get sick, it's a couple days or something like that. That's fine. This was one of those times where it didn't make any sense, and I felt driven, which is usually not something I feel when I'm sick and feeling like shit, right? Usually I'm like exceptionally tired, drained, head doesn't want to work, but I got led. First time I got led to Jason Reed's stuff. Oh, about a year ago, I happened across Jason Reed stuff when I got sick in a very, very similar way. Same symptoms. I didn't have to cancel travel that time like I did this time. I was supposed to go back to my home state to see family, but I literally was visibly ill and not going to make that. But I could read, and so then I felt compelled to read several Fox books from a very different school with a very different mindset. But there were too many similarities, in my opinion, for it to be false. Because I'd started working with the Foxes before I started taking that private course also. And This has to deal with cultivation, just like the Maoshan stuff. I mean, if you're looking for, 1,000 spells to do as a witch or something like that, this type of stuff is not for you. This is much more involved. It involves a certain amount of, I don't want to say faith, but that would be absolutely true. Involves some faith at first until you can feel things moving, and then you're like, oh shit, I didn't waste my time. And how long that takes can vary. It can depend. But I had started working with the Fox stuff from Jason Reed's book, excuse me, and before he set the school up, and I still do. So some of the stuff that I've been read in that other book, if you kind of know how to read it, made a lot of sense to me, right? And I had some epiphanies about some of my own experiences there. Not necessarily that I had answers, because I really didn't have answers. That really isn't how it works, right? You get led across truths in different forms, right? And that's, so even though there's a lot I disagreed with in that book, mostly those parts were actually smaller. Those, you could consider those personal philosophies of you could say they're of the school, but at least of the author. And I'm not talking about Jason Reed here. I like a lot of his stuff. I still do. I'm still in his school. I still do his work. His work for the daily stuff. It feels like a legitimate school to me. I've had a lot of interactions with that. And my experiences with goetics and non-goetics like Helios, and I would say Leviathan because I don't think he's goetic. But my wide variety of experiences with entities kind of got me to the point where I was ready for some of these interactions that I've had since then. Because you're not going to get all of your instruction from the manuals. It's not designed that way. It's not meant that way. We all have different paths, and we all need different things. And in paths like these, the Maoshan and the Fox School, you might need something different. There's going to be a foundation, but the specifics will be different, right? So I think all those other things kind of prepared me for that. And even though I know that, and I do know that, I'm still going through the basic lessons of the school in the order that they're given, largely like I'm supposed to, right? Now I've been giving other things to do, and I can see what those differences are. Not better or worse or anything like that, but different, because I need different things, and they recognize that, right? So... one thing I did want to bring up is that I'm using a lot more oils than I used to, and I know that I've been showing a lot of Hesperidia's oils lately. Some of Belladonna botanicals that I've used in the past for things. I've shown those too, and like powders, and there are some oils that I've made from Crafts of the Void on Etsy. But I've been using a lot more oils lately, and there's actually some really good reasons for that. Some of that is because with some of these entities work, like I talked about in the beginning, like this bolstering work, stuff like that, I don't necessarily want a blood tie to them, right? And I'm not one of those people who think, oh, I've tied my blood to them, it's never going away, because anytime you interact with the spirit, there's a tie there, right? And it doesn't matter if it's blood or not. Okay. Now, that tie can be stronger or it can be less strong. And I'm not afraid of strong ties. Right? But if you actually get proficient in energy work, and I'm not just talking about the fluff and puff horseshit, but, like I'm saying, accessing gates to pull in raw energy and then manipulating that and then using it as you need to. We all get better with that over time. I'm certainly not a master at it. You start to understand that, one, that just because it's a blood tie doesn't mean you're tied to that blood, or tying all your ancestors to that blood either, because, well, you have to understand the different parts of the soul and you may feel differently about those than me. So I guess I should start with that. This is based upon my work with the different parts of the soul. Right here, I'm thinking of just two larger sections of it, the higher and the lower. And the lower is largely what we're using on the daily. I'll say it that way, okay? Because there's no need to get all technical about that shit, because I don't even know if I believe in all the technical stuff about that shit, right? Just being honest. But these two, I'm very confident in my experiences with those. I'm not saying those are universal experiences, okay? So, um, so you are born into a bloodline, but you are not tied to everything in that bloodline. Yeah, the lower you is made of those components, but the upper you is not. And so I think people get wrapped up in some of the, oh, I'm part of this, and I can say the same thing. I mean, my last name leads me directly to named Vikings in the past, right? Literally named Vikings, right? And I'm a male descendant of those through a male line. And do they come when I call? Yes, they do. I am part of that bloodline, but my upper soul is not, right? And so I think people get wrapped up in the lower, thinking that's all there is, and that's not necessarily the case, at least in my point of view, my worldview.